السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. We spoke previously about the Prophet ﷺ going to discipline all the tribes that were attacking in Khaybar, in Al-Khandaq. So after that he went to Mecca and did Sulh al-Hudaybiyah with the Quraysh. Now he controlled Quraysh. The next stage is to try and subdue all the other tribes that were involved in Al-Khandaq, and mainly the one who started the whole problem, and these were the Jews of Khaybar. We know that the Muslims, since Muhammad ﷺ entered Al-Madinah, they never attacked the Jews. Medina was controlled one-third by Al-Aws, one-third by Al-Khazraj, and one-third by the Jews, which were three tribes, if we remember, the Banu Qurayza, Bani Qaynuqa, and Bani Nudayr. After the Prophet ﷺ entered Medina, they made a deal with everybody, and they got all the Jews to sign the treaty, and they were part of the community. So the Prophet ﷺ never attacked anyone, but when they started causing chaos and disobeying the treaty they signed and the law of the land, he was punishing them. Now when we went to Khaybar, the Jews were the first one who started to gather all the parties to attack the Muslims, and hence there is a need to discipline them and control that main source of trouble. So the Prophet ﷺ announced clearly and to everyone that he is going to Khaybar. This was a very clear cut. For the first time the Prophet ﷺ would announce where he's going to attack, and he did say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised him that he will win. So he's going by an order from Allah, not from himself. And he said, no one joins me to Khaybar except the people who were involved and present on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah. The people who made the bay'ah, Bay'at al-Ridwan, or the one who did bay'ah, or say the bay'ah under the tree, are the only 1,400 men to join him. Now Khaybar is a very wealthy area, and it's known to have about 40,000 palm trees plus a lot of gold. And when Muslims of other than the 1,400 heard that Allah has promised the Prophet ﷺ, they all came running to say, Ya Rasulullah, who would like to join you? Ya Rasulullah, please take us with you. He said, no one joins me except the ones who were with me in Hudaybiyah. And because they pushed a lot, al-Munafiqeen and the Bedouins, he said, okay, you can come, but no one will have any part of the booty except the ones who are with me in Bay'at al-Ridwan or Bay'at Sulh al-Hudaybiyah. At that stage, of course, you can guess, no one went, except the ones that he requested, subhanAllah. It was the move towards Khaybar was in Muharram, 7th Hijri, and Muharram we know is Shahrullah al-Haram, so there's no fight. But by the time he got to Khaybar, it was the Safar already outside the Ashhur al-Hurum, and at that stage the Prophet ﷺ needed about a few weeks to a month to get there. It was northeast Medina al-Munawwara. When the Jews in Medina, the ones left behind, heard that the Prophet is going to Khaybar, they started trying to slow down the Muslim from reaching there, so to give people in Khaybar enough time to prepare or to change a plan. So one of them was Abu Shahm. There was a Muslim called Abdullah who owes him 5 dirhams, subhanAllah. He refused to let him go before he pays him the money. Abdullah went to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, he's not allowing me. The Prophet ﷺ said, you pay what you owe him. You will not leave without paying. This is dayn. If you die, la qadarallah, with anything you owe as a debt, you will not enter Jannah, so pay your debt first. So Abdullah went to Abu Shahm, said, just wait until I go to Hudaybiyah, I'll get some of the booty and come back and I'll pay you. He said, no, la wallah, Hudaybiyah, you will be killed. They will murder you in Hudaybiyah. What do you mean Hudaybiyah? What do you mean Khaybar? Khaybar is full of men, 10,000 men. They will kill you there. So at this stage, Abdullah had nothing to do, so he had to sell his own part of his clothes to get the money, and he paid Abu Shaham. Just to say, after Khaybar, subhanAllah, Abdullah returned with the booties, and he had one slave. She was a relative to Abu Shaham, and Abu Shaham paid doubles and doubles what Abdullah owed him to free this woman. Now the Prophet ﷺ decided where we're going, and he started his move. But the Jews of Al-Madinah sent a man from the tribe of Banu al-Ashja' to warn people in Khaybar. And Al-Munafiqeen, although they claim they're Muslims, but they're hypocrites, they sent a man from amongst themselves, subhanAllah, to warn the Jews in Khaybar. The Muslims managed to stop the man from Banu al-Ashja' to arrive, but the man from Munafiqeen managed to tell them, and he warned them. So out of the warning, the Jews got all the women, all the children, almost all their wealth that they could gather, and put it in the most fortified or stronghold, which was Hisn al-Nazar, which is the fort of Nazar, which was a big castle on the top of a mountain. Just to have an idea about Khaybar, it's divided into 3 big areas. Now, of course, we're talking big areas in square miles. And first one is al-Nataq, the second is al-Shaq, and the third is al-Katiba. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to attack one at a time, and each one had multiple forts, not just the one. So it's a matter of controlling one at a time of these forts. Now, when the Jews heard, Salam ibn Mushkim, one of their leaders, gathered them and said, what should we do? Some said, oh, we'll wait in our forts, we're not going to fight them, leave them alone, and they will just wear and tire and leave. Others said, no, we will go out, all force, fight them, kick them, push them back, and come back to our forts. And Salam ibn Mushkim, as a wise leader, he said, no one has been attacked in his own land except they lost. Let's go and attack them in Medina, and then if we die, that's it, we've done what we can. If we live, we finish the Muslims, and we can come back to our land, our women, our forts. Of course, they refused that. They were so scared of moving outside there. So Salam Mushkim said, Wallahi, there is no man amongst you who would listen to a wise decision. The Muslim were 1,400 men. People in Khaybar were about 10,000 strong men. And on top of this, the king of Khaybar, Kanan ibn Huqayq, he went himself into a delegation to the tribes. First of the tribe was Bani Murrah, and met their leader, Haris ibn Auf, and told him to help them to fight with the Jews against Muhammad. Al-Harith was another wise leader, and he said, no, I can see the power of Muhammad stretching away, and he's becoming stronghold. I can't fight him. I don't want to involve my people in this. So the Kanan ibn Huqayq, the king of the Khaybar, as I said, went now to Ghatafan to meet Uyayna ibn Husn. And Uyayna ibn Husn, if you remember from previous sessions, he was nicknamed by the Prophet ﷺ the obeyed idiot, because he had no decision making. He was literally someone who could not make decisions, but no matter what he says, 5,000 to 10,000 men would obey him. So he went to him and he agreed and said, I will send now 1,000 men with you directly, and I will follow you with 4,000. So you have 1,000 with you, you'll be 11,000, and I'll follow, we'll have 15,000 men in Khaybar. Harith ibn Auf heard about this, so he went straight to Uyayna ibn Husn, and Uyayna asked him not to help people in Khaybar. And Uyayna ibn Husn was saying, why? So Harith said, I heard with my own ears, Salam ibn Mushkim, one of the Jewish leaders, as we said, saying that the Jews will have 2 episodes when they will be slaughtered and killed. One in Medina, and you know what happened to Bani Qurayza, and one in Khaybar. So be aware of what's happening. He said, if you're saying what you're saying is true, why is Salam the Muslim fighting with them? Harith said, well, he's one of them, he's his population, he has to defend himself. So Uyayna ibn Hisn said, and I'm with him. SubhanAllah, it has nothing to do with them, but again, SubhanAllah, he's just want to decide these ways, a strange way. So Uyayna ibn Hisn decided to go, and he took 4,000 men and started following the Jews. Within that time, a small group of Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ sent them with, led by Abbad ibn Bishr, to look at ahead of time, the road, if there's any plots or anything, to prepare and warn the Prophet ﷺ. And while they're moving, the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba, who would get me to Khaybar from the north? And we said, Medina is in the south, so if they go to Khaybar northeast of Medina, they will come from the southwest. The Prophet wanted to go through the front up to the north, so if he can stop or cut the Jews going towards Bilad al-Sham in Damascus area. So one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, he took them all the way around, and they managed eventually to get through that. Now the Prophet ﷺ has 1,400 men, all on horses and camels. He didn't want complete discipline, didn't want any hiccups. So he asked them to be in one line. He said, I don't want any mess up with the rows, a straight row. And as the Muslims were going and going, the Prophet ﷺ saw in the horizon a bit of a glow. So he went and he found one of the Sahaba, radiallahu anhu, who called Abu Abs, Sahabi called Abu Abs, who was already going ahead. So he stopped him and said, Ya Abu Abs, what is this? What's happened? I ordered everybody to be in one line. He said, Ya Rasulullah, my camel is a bit active. I could not hold it. He said, that is not an excuse. You should hold the camel, or you should not be part of this. So what the Prophet ﷺ did, he just pulled him back and got a few Sahaba to surround him as if he's imprisoned, and this way his camel would be kind of controlled at the same time. But it was a sign that there is no way for games, it's a discipline. The Muslims, concerned that as they were carrying on, suddenly they saw behind them a group of an army coming behind. They were heading to Khaybar in front, and suddenly there's a group of army behind them. The Prophet ﷺ sent to say, check what it is, and suddenly he found Ghatafan with Uyayna ibn Hisn and 4,000 men behind them. So they were kind of between the jaws of the two powers now. We have Ghatafan behind them and Khaybar in front. So the Prophet ﷺ went to speak to Uyayna ibn Hisn and said, Ya Uyayna, what are you doing here? He said, I'm here to help my friends in Khaybar. He said, Ya Uyayna, Allah has promised me that I will conquer Khaybar. So it's happening. Why don't you take half the crops of Khaybar for a whole year and leave us alone? So Uyayna said, you will get Khaybar. Wallahi, they will slaughter you before you get there. You don't have anything from Khaybar to offer it to me now. He said, just take it. He said, no, I'm not. The Prophet ﷺ left him, and then he went. Uyayna ibn Hisn ran and went straight to the Jews inside the forts and left the troops behind the Prophet ﷺ and behind the Muslims. After a while, the Prophet ﷺ kept saying these groups of men behind them, so it was a bit irritating. So he sent Sa'd ibn Ubadah radiallahu anhu, one of the Ansar, to Uyayna ibn Hisn. So he called him and came out of the fort, and Sa'd ibn Ubadah told him, Ya Uyayna, take your people and leave, and we will give you the crops of Khaybar for a whole year, not half a year, the whole year. Uyayna ibn Hisn still insisted that, no, I'm not doing anything, I'm not leaving my friends, I will fight you with them, nothing, no deal. Sa'd ibn Ubadah returned to the Prophet ﷺ, said, Ya Rasulullah, he's insisting, he's not leaving. The Prophet ﷺ said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. As this word from the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ, as strong as it is, subhanallah, a man or a voice was heard from behind all the troops calling for Ghatafan. Oh, Ghatafan, run back to your tribe, they have been attacked. Subhanallah, they heard that, the 4,000 troops turned and ran and sent someone to call Uyayna from the fort. Uyayna ibn Hisn heard that. He took the 1,000 men that were inside the forts and back to his tribe. By the time they arrived there, they found what's happened. Anybody called? Anybody attacked you? Said, no, there's nothing. Nothing happened. What's going on? So subhanAllah, they said, okay, fine, let's go back to Khaybar. By the time they went back to their troops, and again back to Khaybar, the Prophet ﷺ has conquered half Khaybar, if not more. And at that stage, there was no money to be paid for them anymore. As they were progressing, getting close, the Prophet ﷺ asked one of the Sahaba, the Amir ibn al-Aqwa, who had a nice voice, and he asked him, Ya Amir, why don't you do a nasheed to us? And Amir ibn al-Aqwa started making nasheed, and he has nice voice, mashallah, subhanAllah. From his nice voice, even the camels started twisting right and left, and to the degree that the women who were on the camels being carried away, they were afraid they would fall off the camels. And in this time, there were 20 women with the Muslims. So they sent to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, we're about to fall, be careful. So Rasulullah ﷺ said, Ya Amir, be gentle with the vessels. This is where we say be gentle with the women. So he said, be gentle with the vessels. So he had to slow down, subhanAllah, and the camels calmed down. And after that, the Prophet was so happy with what Amir al-Aqwa was saying. He said, Ya Amir, yarhamukallah. May Allah bless you. But when the Prophet says, yarhamukallah to any of the Sahaba, subhanAllah, the Sahaba understood that it's time for Amir to be martyred. And he was martyred in this event, subhanAllah. When they arrived to outskirts of Khaybar, the Sahaba were so happy to see it, and they started doing takbir, so loud takbir that the Prophet ﷺ said, slow down, don't shout out loud. You are not calling anybody who's deaf. Allah can hear you. Don't shout loud. Then they got closer and closer, and they were trying to check if there is any predators, and suddenly they saw some farmers coming, and the farmers ran in close. So the Prophet ﷺ camped. It was night, they camped. That night, subhanAllah, Allah put the sleep in the heads of Khaybar. And when they woke up in the morning, they were late. Usually the Jews used to send the troops out first thing to check if there's anything right or wrong. Then they come back and let the farmers out. That day, the morning, everybody was still asleep. Farmers woke up late, camped quick, didn't check if the army or the soldiers checked up, and they went out. As they came out, they saw the Prophet ﷺ and his army in front. And they shouted, Muhammad and his army, Muhammad and his army, and ran back. And they closed the gates. The Muslims wanted to run and attack them. The Prophet ﷺ said, slow down. Do not wish to meet your enemy. Just making sure that they understand that. Be patient. We only attack when it's the right time. We just don't wish to meet them. And the Prophet ﷺ then gathered the Muslims and started making dua to stabilize the hearts of the Muslims, that everything is from Allah. And he said, Allahumma anta rabbuna wa rabbuhum. O Allah, you are our Lord and their Lord. Wa nawasina wa nawasihim biyadik. And our heads and souls and theirs is in your hand. Wa innama taqtuluhum ant. And this is where he wanted to stress the iman, that you are the one who kills them. Allah is the one who kills, not us. Of course, we know in Surah Al-Anfal, previously when we had the lesson in that, when وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى, when it's Numbers chapter 8, verse 17, فَلَمْ تَقْتُلُوهُمْ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ قَتَلَهُمْ وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى وَلِيَبْتَلِيَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْهُ بَلَاءً حَسَنًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Allah, then it was in the days of Badr, but that's a lesson for here, that you did not kill them, Allah killed them. And you did not throw that amount of dust that entered all their eyes then. Allah has thrown it. You didn't throw it, but Allah was the one who threw it, so it affected everybody. A lesson for Muslims about Iman. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam set up all the guard and got Umar ibn al-Khattab as the leader for the guard to guard the whole area. Anybody who can come to try and attack them or sneak in, he can capture. and got to Uthman ibn Affan, a known tradesman, to look after the whole camp, from food, transport, anything they need, water, the whole catering part of it. And then Muhammad ﷺ sent to Khaybar, sent them a message and said, I call you for one of three options. Enter Islam. If you're Muslim, you protect yourself, your family, your blood, your wealth. You pay the jizya if you don't want to. But you are now, you admit that you're under the ruling of Islam and you pay the jizya, which is like a tax, and the Muslim will look after you and protect you. Or if you refuse these two, it's war. It will be a fight. They sent the message to the messenger, said, go back to Muhammad and we'll give you the answer in a few minutes. They returned to Prophet, said, Ya Rasulullah, they said they will come. They will send a message. Suddenly the fort gates opened and they came out running like mad and attacked, sudden attack. Prophet had his lines prepared, the Sahaba already, and they started the defense. They couldn't get anything, so they returned back. But that was the answer. No, we're not going to become Muslim, we will not pay jizya, we will be fighting you. So the Muslims managed to get them back, and the problem now, the Jews can attack anytime they wish. They can suddenly come out, attack, so the Muslims has to be very careful. One day they just suddenly came out again and they really nearly dispersed the Muslims. And the Muslims has to really regather their power, and they were shaken. After that, the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba to rest. Now this was all, of course, as said from the beginning, on one of the first area of the Khaybar, which is An-Nitaq. It was the first fort, which was called Hisn al-Na'im. The leader of that was Al-Harith, and he has brothers who were with him. Now Al-Harith is a strong fighter and a leader, but when the Sahaba said, the Prophet asked him to rest, one of the Sahaba, Mahmud ibn Maslama, decided to go and sit on a little wall on a kind of deserted little old fort. And when they saw him, he said, oh, look at him there. Who would go and kill him? So one of the Jews, which was Marhab, a very strong fighter, the brother of Al-Harith, he said, I will go. And he went, sneaked out of the fort, went over the wall of the other fort and threw a big stone on Mahmud ibn Maslama. Mahmud ibn Maslama was badly injured, so he managed to go back to the Prophet ﷺ, and he saw him bleeding. They tried to treat him. SubhanAllah, he didn't make it, and he died, rahmatullah alayh, in martyr, inshaAllah. As soon as this happened, suddenly the Jews started throwing arrows from the fort onto the Muslims. And the Muslims kept on defending and defending and defending. One of the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ, Al-Habbab ibn Mundhir, said, Ya Rasulullah, this is not a safe place. Shall we retreat at least a little bit safe from the arrows? He said, not now. They would say they are cowards. Let's wait. So they waited till the evening came, darkness, and they pulled back to an area where the arrows wouldn't reach as safety. Now, they asked the Prophet ﷺ, said, a man, the Prophet ﷺ said, no one attacks. Next day, troops were coming, he said, no one attacks. And suddenly, as they saw the troops coming, one man just ran and wanted to attack them, and he was killed. Of course, if you kill, you would say, he's a martyr. Rahmatullahi alayh. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Jannah is not be given to anyone who disobeys. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave an order, you do not move. He disobeyed. He was killed, although he's going for the sake of Allah, but he's disobeyed the Prophet, so he is not in Jannah. Walayadu billah. So that was another fatwa that came around this as from the fiqh. While they were there, a slave came out from the forts with too many cattle and started going with the cattle, and subhanAllah, he just became Muslim. He went to the Prophet with all that and became Muslim and said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm a Muslim, I have all this cattle, it's all yours. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, this is not ours, this is theirs. Islam is fine, but you keep this with them. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I can't go back, they will kill me. He said, just guide them to go to the gate. and Allah will take the rest. So he guided all the cattle to walk and walk and walk, and they kept coming. And subhanAllah, he pulled back, and the cattle kept going until they entered the fort, and he became Muslim. Just as they entered, the cattle entered, subhanAllah, the Jews came out and attacked again. And as they were attacking, that slave who just became Muslim was killed. And this is the second time when the Prophet ﷺ said, if whoever wants to look at a man from Jannah who has never prayed a rak'ah, let him look at this man. He did not pray anything, but he just became Muslim, and he was martyred, subhanAllah, suddenly. Subhanallah. When the Jews find that there's no way of winning any of these attacks, they decide, let's try duels. So Marhab, their strongest, powerful man, came out, said, who would come for a duel? Ali ibn Abi Talib said, I will go, Ya Rasulullah. So Muhammad ibn Maslama said, no, Ya Ali, I have a vendetta here. I need to avenge my brother. Leave him to me. So Muhammad ibn Maslama radiallahu anhu went, and they fought a fight. The Sahaba said, it was so powerful. We have not seen anything like it before. And they kept fighting and fighting, and eventually Muhammad ibn Maslama kicked his leg and cut the leg of Marhab. And Marhab said, kill me. He said, no, I want you to die slow, taste death, in the same way that he left his brother to die slowly. And returned. As he returned, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anh went in and killed him and took his weapons and everything he had as booty and came back and said, Ya Rasulullah, I killed him. Muhammad Maslam said, Ya Rasulullah, I've been fighting it for an hour. Wallahi, I just left him because I wanted him just to suffer and taste death proper, not just to kill him. And Prophet ﷺ said, yes, Ya Ali, he killed him, not you. Give him the booty, it's his. And he obeyed. Once Marhab was killed, his brother, the leader, Al-Harith, came out and asked for a duel. And Abu Dujana radiallahu anh came out with a duel. He killed Al-Harith. Now the third brother came, Yasir. And Yasir was a giant man. The Prophet ﷺ looked at him and said, Subhanallah, what is this? Do you think he is 5 arm length? And when we say 5 arm length, it's anything between 2.5, 3.5 meters. So he is really tall. You can imagine, even in our days count. Who would go for him? As Zubayr ibn Awam came and stood up and said, I will kill him, Ya Rasulullah. Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, the mother of Zubayr and the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ, went and said, Ya Rasulullah, I fear that he will kill my son. You know, the mother now feeling a man, a giant. He said, no, your son will kill him, insha'Allah. And as Zubayr went for a duel, a strong duel, and he killed this man. And when he was killed, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allahu Akbar. He was so pleased to see that this giant man being killed, because he's a major danger looking at him, scary type of man. And at this time, the Prophet ﷺ said, every prophet has an apostle, Hawari. And my apostle is Az-Zubayr. And this one given as the Zubayr, who Hawariyul Rasulullah, the apostle of the Prophet ﷺ. The fourth brother came out, there are 4 brothers now. He said, Marhab, Al-Harith, Yasir, and their fourth now, Amir, came out and asked for a duel. Ali ibn Abi Talib responded and duel and killed him. Then another one of the leaders from them, called Usayr, came out, and Muhammad Naslama came to him again, second time, and he killed him. The Prophet, the Jews said, every duel is killed, there's nothing, they're not winning anything. So he said, okay, no more duels and no more fights. The Muslims were surrounding this fort of Al-Na'im, Hisn al-Na'im, for 14 days. After 14 days, they couldn't find anything, and a man tried to sneak out from the fort. Umar al-Khattab captured him, one of the Jewish people. And he wanted to kill him. He said, no, take me to your Prophet. So he took him to Muhammad ﷺ and said, the Prophet ﷺ said, why are you here? What have you got for us? He said, well, I left behind me troops and power. They have all food, they have money, they have wealth, they have water. You will never enter and conquer it if you stay years. He said, are you here to threaten me? He said, no. The problem is we have it in our Torah that you will conquer Khaybar. We know it. And that's why we cannot find a way to defeat you. He said, so what do you want then? He said, I just want from you to give me protection for me, my family, and my wealth. If and when you conquer it, I don't want to fight you, just leave me in peace. He said, that's fine. You're under my protection, we will not harm you. That night, the Prophet ﷺ said, tomorrow, I will give the flag to a man who loves Allah and His Prophet and is loved by Allah and the Prophet. So all the Muslims then were wishing and hoping that they will have the flag. The Prophet ﷺ used to give the flag to a Sahabi every day just to keep the honor amongst them. But that night, everybody wanted the flag the following day. Even Umar ibn Khattab said, I never wanted to be a leader or take any leadership except tonight. Because tomorrow, the person who will raise the flag will be the one who loves Allah and is loved by Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next day, they all woke up early wanting that flag, subhanallah. And as they woke up, they go and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, where is Ali? And Ali ibn Abi Talib came in and he had conjunctivitis, inflammation in his eyes. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I cannot see anything in front of me. No plane, no mountain, nothing. It's all hazy. So the Prophet ﷺ wiped on his face and subhanAllah, for the power of Allah, he was completely cured. He gave him the flag and got him to lead that battalion on that day 15. Ali ibn Abi Talib prepared a different tactic this time. He waited till the Jews came out of the fort, and instead of attacking them, he retreated a little bit. And they attacked and he retreated, and they felt, oh, they are afraid of us, let's attack further. So they kept pushing and Ali retreating, and suddenly he had prepared two small battalions on the right and left, and they attacked from the side and ran straight to the gate. The Jews saw that, they turned around and started running to the gate to try and stop it being opened and left open so the Muslims don't enter. And by the time the Jews arrived, the Muslims arrived at the same time. The fight happened at the gates, and subhanAllah, the Jews were defeated and ran away. The Muslim conquered Hasn al-Na'im. This is the first fort they entered, and then the Jews ran straight to the next one. They had special route that they were using, which was Hasn al-Sa'b. That's the second one. And that was As-Sa'b ibn Mu'az was their leader. This fort, again, same thing, still surrounded, stronghold. And the Muslims entered the fort of Na'im, found a little bit of food, not too much, not much weapons. So there wasn't much in this fort because the Jews were taking everything from As-Sa'b, constantly supply. Now, the fort was not so wealthy in it. But at the end of the day, this was the first fort in Mantaq al-Nitaq. Now they were going to the second one. Now, as they come to the second one, the Prophet ﷺ left a small battalion to protect this fort and moved with the rest of Sahaba to the other one. Now, while they were surrounding that fort, a few days, there was not enough food left. The Muslims didn't have much, so they started having hunger, and there was famine affecting them, subhanAllah. And one of the Sahaba went to Prophet ﷺ. He said, Ya Rasulullah, please make dua to Allah. We are hungry, we need something, we need to eat. He said, and the Prophet ﷺ made dua and said, oh Allah, give us, open on us, make us conquer the richest of the forts, where we'll have lots of wealth and food in. And actually this was the fort of As-Sa'b. It has all the food. And as they were going, a man called Jawsha' came out for a duel, and Al-Habbab ibn Munzir went, answered him, and killed him, subhanAllah, with a duel very quickly. And as with the hunger, they were just surrounding everything and still tired. Suddenly they saw a group of donkeys passing by. The Sahaba saw donkeys, okay, we're hungry. They killed a few of them and started cooking them. Prophet ﷺ saw activity and fires. What's happening? He said, Ya Rasulullah, we found a few donkeys, we killed them, we need to eat. And at that stage he said, no, you do not eat this. And at that stage, the Prophet ﷺ made the fiqh of that donkeys should not be eaten. These are animals used for the daily livelihood of Muslims. You should not do anything to them. So that it was made haram to eat the donkey. And at the same time, he made haram as well zawaj al-mut'ah, the marriage of just for the sake of few days, rather than the full, proper marriage. And he made haram everything to eat anything that has the canines, like the lions and the tigers and dogs, and the birds that kill with their claws. So these are all haram. It was all in this event. And as they were sitting there, trying to continue the attack, waiting for the Jews to do what they're doing, suddenly, subhanAllah, the fort opened and a shepherd came out with all the nice cattle and lambs. And the Muslims were just looking, and they couldn't approach because of the arrows that could attack them. And the Prophet ﷺ said, who would go and get us some of this? A Sahabi called Abu Yabas said, Ya Rasulullah, I will do it. So he crawled and crawled, a commando episode, until he got close to the lambs and suddenly jumped. As he jumped, you can imagine the cattle run everywhere. So Sahaba said, Wallah, he just grabbed one with the right hand, one left hand, and he was running to us as if he was not carrying anything. It felt so light. He had 2 lambs, subhanAllah, they cooked them, and the Muslims managed to eat and strengthen themselves. One day, the Jews started throwing arrows like nothing, and out of everything, subhanAllah, one of the arrows affected and hit the Prophet ﷺ in his hand. And so the Prophet ﷺ started making a call. As he was hurt, the Jews out in one power after all these arrows, and really a big attack, that they dispersed the Muslims. The Muslims were so shaken by this attack that they could not hold steady, and they ran away. The Prophet ﷺ was steady on his own with few of Sahaba surrounding him, and he felt that everybody was shaken. So the Prophet ﷺ started shaking, Ya ashab al-shajara, O you who made the bay'ah and signed the treaty with me under the tree. Ya ashab bay'at al-ridwan. The Sahaba who were running heard this, and suddenly Allah gave them they reflected and remembered, there is the bay'ah, we did put our hands in the hands of the Prophet that we will never run away. That was in Hudaybiyah. And out of the blue, subhanAllah, the iman got back in their hearts. Remembering that, they returned, regrouped, attacked the Prophet, and managed to push the Jews back. And as the Jews were entering the fort, they managed to push them further and kept the gates open. And that defeat within seconds from just the call of the Prophet ﷺ was turned into a victory, and Husn al-Sa'ab fell. The Jews ran out from there and went to the 3rd fort in Al-Nataq, called the fort of Al-Zubayr. This was different just because of geographical reason. It was on a hill. But as the Prophet ﷺ entered the fort of Al-Sa'ab, he found wealth, food, everything. Suddenly he found something he never saw. So he called the Jew who he gave the treaty as a peace and protection. He said, what are these? He said, these are weapons. They're called the catapult and the tank. The catapult, people who have seen the Lords of the Ring, is you put the big rock in it and it just throws it all the way into distance. And the tank is the one with stairs. You line it onto the fort, and they climb on it so they can get onto the fort, the walls. And these were there. He said, what are these? Why are they preparing it? We don't know that the Jews are preparing to attack anybody because they are in peace. They said, no, they are preparing these to attack Medina specifically. Subhanallah, they were already plotting as well to attack Medina with major power. And then they found barrels and barrels of alcohol. The Prophet ﷺ ordered to get all that broken. So suddenly there were alcohol running all over the grounds. One of the Sahaba, Abdullah, was an addict before Islam. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Before Islam and before the khamr was haram, he was addicted, and then he stopped. But when he smelled all that and saw the alcohol, subhanallah, shaitan got onto him and he drank from it. The Sahaba went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, Abdullah is back to drinking alcohol. So he called him and he said, what happened? He said, Ya Rasulullah, shaitan just was all over me. I couldn't resist. The Prophet ﷺ took his shoe and started hitting him with his shoe as demeaning effect. And he called all the Sahaba, each one to take his shoe off and hit him once as a punishment. That was before the proper punishment came from Allah, which is nowadays, whoever drinks alcohol is 40 lashes. And then Umar ibn Khattab said, La'anak Allah, may Allah curse you. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Umar, do not curse him. he is someone who loves Allah and His Prophet. Meaning, do not help shaitan on him. He made a mistake, he made a sin. We help him. We don't just push him further out of Islam because of this. We try and accommodate him and make istighfar for him. We don't curse him. It was another lesson for the Muslims in general, even up to days. And to the surprise of the Muslim, in that fort, they found Salam ibn Mushkim, one of their leaders, and he's the one who started the whole trouble of the trench, Al-Khandaq. He was sick, he could not run away. So the Prophet ﷺ ordered to kill him, because he is the major source of the treason and trouble. And then Prophet ﷺ ordered the Sahaba to go up onto the fort and make takbir. So they all went up to the fort and made takbir so loud, because it was on a fort, on a height, that even people in the miles down the road, which is in Al-Katiba, the third part of Khaybar, could hear the takbir. And that really put fear in the hearts of those tribes. Muhammad ﷺ left another battalion to protect this fort. Of course, there's a lot of wealth and food in there, so they needed it. And then he moved to the third fort, which is a fort of Az-Zubayr. And as they tried, this was the difference in this, as we said, was on a hill, but it was built from stone, not from wood like the other forts. So it was another tricky one to get through. The Muslims tried to go and try and attack. They couldn't find anything. And out of the blue again, a man called Ghazal from the Jews came out trying to sneak out. Umar al-Khattab captured him. He said, take me to your Prophet. So he took him to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what do you want? What have you got behind you? He said, I have men, I have power, I have wealth behind me. We'll never conquer this. We have all the sorts of weapons. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, are you here to threaten me? Do you think I'm going to be afraid? Allah has promised me Khaybar. He said, we know that. This is our problem. We know it's in our Torah that Allah promised you Khaybar and you will conquer it. So he said, so what do you want? He said, I want protection for me, my family, and my wealth. He said, you have my protection. What is it for me? He said, now I'll tell you that this fort has everything except water. He said, so where do you get water from? He said, there is a tunnel under the fort. We go down, we collect water, and go up. The Prophet ﷺ asked him to guide him to this water springs. So he took him there, and they found, yes, there is a big door that they come out, fill up water from springs and back. So they locked the doors and stopped water entering. When the Jews came to the water, there was nothing, and they heard the Muslim army on the other side. So suddenly they came out with one big fight to try and fight and defend. There's no way, you're dying, so let's fight. So they attacked the Muslims, and subhanAllah, with the power of Allah, the Muslims managed to conquer this and win the battle, and they conquered the third fort of Az-Zubayr. And the Jews ran away. And now they have controlled An-Nataq. The whole area, first area of An-Nataq was controlled. Now Muslims moved to the other territory, which is the area called Ash-Shaq. As I said, the three areas in Khaybar. In the area of Shaq, they started with the fort of Ubay, and that was another fort that was made of stone and on a hill again. Abu Dujana radiallahu anh stood and tried to attack multiple battalions, could not do anything because it's on a hill. But one day, subhanAllah, he waited till the Jews opened the gates and tried to attack, and he sneaked from behind and went to the doors, attacked them from behind, managed to keep the doors open, and that fort fell very quickly. Subhanallah, they've learned the tricks that they can do with the forts. Now, the last, when they went and they moved straight to the last fort and fort of An-Nazar, and that was, as we said from the beginning, the most defensible one, and that's why they put all their women, all their children, and almost all their wealth in that fort, the fort of An-Nazar. And from that, they started trying to attack. The problem with this fort was it was not on a hill, it was up on a mountain, and it was made of stone as well. So trying to attack it was extremely difficult to the Muslims, subhanallah. At that stage, the Prophet ﷺ said, bring me the catapult. And they got him the catapult and the tanks, these special weapons that they had in the fort of As-Sa'ab. They were all pulled and pulled all the way to that other port. of the fort. And the Prophet ﷺ ordered that they attack with the catapult on only one area of the wall until it's knocked down and destroyed. And then he got the tanks and asked the Sahaba to push it up that mountain until it gets close to the wall so they can climb on it. And so the arrows doesn't hurt them, he said cover it with leather. And on top of that, sometimes you can throw arrows with fire. So he said make it wet with water. So arrows do not penetrate it, fire does not hurt them, and they can be able to climb on the walls by the time they reach there. And as they carried on hammering the wall in one area until it broke, the Muslims, subhanAllah, managed to find a weakness in there and went in and conquered the most defensible of their forts. There, the Jews ran all the way, right, left, center, all out of the way of Al-Nataq to the other last area, which is called Al-Katiba. And then the Muslims took everything there, and of course, women, children, wealth was all part of their share. Duhyat al-Kalbi, one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, one of his share was Safiya radiallahu anha, now we say. She was the daughter of Hayy ibn Akhtab, one of their leaders from Medina. And Duhyat al-Kalbi came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, Ya Rasulullah, this is a daughter of a king, and she is the wife of a king. She was the wife of the son of Kunan ibn Abi Huqayq. Kunan ibn Abi Huqayq was the king of Khaybar. His son was married to Safiya. So she is literally the wife of the prince, the future king, and her father used to be a king. He was killed with Bani Qurayza. So the Prophet ﷺ said yes. And he took her with him. And as soon as she met the Prophet ﷺ, she did Shahada. She became Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, I haven't asked you yet to be Muslim. Why did you become Muslim? He said, Wallahi, I still remember the day you walked to Medina when my uncle and my father came back home, and they were so upset. I remember my father asking my uncle Yasir, who was a scholar in Judaism. He said, is it him? He said, yes. He said, are you sure it's him? It's him? He said, yes, it's him. He said, is that the prophet that is mentioned in the Torah? He said, yes, wallahi, it is him. He said, have you known him with all his signs? Look how much stress he's putting on that request. He said, yes, I have known him with all his signs. He is the prophet. He said, so what have you planned to do? He said, wallahi, I have planned his anonymity till I die. Subhanallah, he knew he is the prophet. It's in their Torah. But Shaitan told them, no, I'm going to be his enemy. I will not believe in him. And she said, since then, and Islam is in my heart. So now I can know that is true. And she made Shahada. Now, one thing that is, subhanAllah, as part of the human nature, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ used to tease Sayyidah Safiya and call, every time they used to meet her, they used to call her, oh, daughter of the Jew. And she would cry. She was so upset, what is it to me if my father was a Jew? So once Prophet came and he saw her crying and said, what is it, Safiya? He said, your wives, Ya Rasulullah, they keep calling me, oh, you daughter of the Jew. She said, if next time they tell you that, tell them, my father is Harun and my uncle is Musa. Apparently her father, Huyay ibn Akhtab, is a descendant from Harun alayhi salam. So uncle is Musa alayhi salam. And her husband is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So she is the kind of a descendant, a daughter of a Nabi. Her uncle is a Nabi, and now she's married to a Nabi. So she went next time they told her, your daughter of the Jew, she said, my father is a Nabi Harun, and my uncle is Musa. Which one of you has this? So they stopped teasing her. On this tone, I leave it, inshallah. We'll continue next week. Jazakum Allahu khair. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.